The discovery of skeletal remains at the bottom of a well slowly reveals long-held secrets within the Chicken Hill community of Pottstown, where both Black and Jewish families reside amidst racial tensions.
I hate Rachel tensions. I knew her in high school. Go ahead. You got it. Let's keep going.
The book, The Heaven and Earth Grocery Store. The author, James McBride. And you're listening to Lit Society. Let's get lit. Hi, readers, or should I say, literati. This is Alexis.
Hey, literati, this is Kari.
And you're listening to Lit Society, a podcast about books and drama. Kari, how you doing this week? It's good to see you.
Yes, I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm doing good. And
how's Portugal?
Portugal is good. I'm enjoying the weather and the beaches and the pools, all having good fun.
Oh, yes.
How about you? How's Chicago life?
Chicago's good. Traffic's been interesting. The DNC convention is this week.
Okay.
But like you, I'm enjoying the weather, heading to the beach, which I consider therapy.
Yes.
I love the beach.
Yes.
Again, I get enough of the beach. So,
yeah, I love the beach. Okay, we'll get started. So instead of doing our theme of the week, we're going to venture into Society Says. You know what that is, where we share your comments with the rest of our lit society. Kari, is there a comment that you found particularly lit?
Yeah, there's a comment I wanted to share from Apple Podcasts. This is from H.J.E. Simmons. And they say, my favorite podcast. This podcast is amazing. It has something for everyone. Looking for a fresh take on a dusty old classic? Find it here. Spoiler-free review of the latest bestseller. They've got that too. Totally eclectic. I never know what's coming next. The best part of this podcast is the hosts. I feel like I know Alexis and Kari, and I would love to meet them IRL. Not afraid of difficult topics and conversations. I really appreciate their willingness to tackle hard things, but there's also a lot of fun. Not to be missed are their wonderful dramatic readings. I can't recommend this enough. Thank you, H.J.E. Simmons. Oh, yeah. You make us feel so good.
Yeah, I love that comment. Oh.
Alexis, is there a comment you wanted to share from the literati?
Yeah, I'm sorry, I can't remember where it's from, but it is from Divox. That's what I think it is. And they say, love it. I can't speak highly enough of this show. There is comedy, a great friendship, insightful reviews, honesty, and personality to boot. Y'all made me read more just so I can dig into the archives and have informed listening to all of your episodes. Huge fan who hopes to write a book you review. Thank you very much, Devox. We appreciate your comments and your support of our show. Remember, literati, to have your comments shared. Message us on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and we especially love it when you leave us a review on Apple Podcasts and Spotify with the 5 stars, though. With the 5 stars.
Yeah, 5-star reviews. 5 stars.
That's what we need, y'all.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're going to move on a little bit, and we're going to take in the context and author. Kari, what can you share with us about the author and context for this book?
You know, we talked about James McBride thoroughly, I thought, when we reviewed Deacon King Kong. So I don't have much to add about that, but just a reminder, he has a Black American and Jewish background. His mother was Jewish. His dad was Black American. And in the town that he grew up in, it was similar to the neighborhood we're reading about here, Chicken Hill, where what united people was their economic level before race. So race was secondary to where they all were on the in the class scale. So as they shared similar struggles, similar joys, that really united the community, and he enjoyed growing up in a community that was mixed in that way, racially and religiously. So you see that in his books. It's always about community. Reading a James McBride book, I feel like it's like watching a sitcom from the 90s, like early 90s, where if you're looking for a plot, you might have lost the plot yourself. Because there will be a plot for sure, and it'll be great. But really, what it's about is the community. You're supposed to fall in love with the characters and like hang out in this neighborhood. That's how his books are.
Okay.
So it's like, Good Times. I ain't never watched Good Times, but I imagine if you like Good Times, we ain't there yet, but if you like Good Times, I think you like James McBride books. So anyway, that's that.
Good Times.
Did you have anything new to add? Yeah, Good Times.
No, I don't have anything to add new about James McBride, but I do appreciate you reminding me of his background. That was helpful. That exposed a lot to me just immediately when you said that. So
yeah. And Alexis, who do you think would enjoy reading this book?
So whenever I read a James McBride book, and I feel like I've read a couple of them, I always think of Colson Whitehead. Hate to do it, but I do, because I feel like their writing style is very similar, and where they talk a lot about the community, and that fills up the story. So that's what I thought about. Why did you actually choose this book, Kari?
I chose this book because it was a new James McBride, and I didn't want to let it get away from me. I wanted to make sure I dove into it as soon as possible. When did this book come out?
Yeah, I think it was it 21?
Okay, great, because we're going to spoil it. This is a part 1 and part 2, so we'll cover part 1 of the book this episode and part 2 next episode, and there will be spoilers. I just want to make sure. We don't like to spoil new books.
Yeah, no, I don't think it's that new.
It's been out.
It's been out.
Okay, good.
I feel like at least a couple years.
Okay, great.
Okay, so why don't we take a quick break? Oh, it was released in 23. Does that make a difference?
Was it?
Yeah, it just says it was released in 23.
You know what? We'll figure it out as we go. I really don't want to ruin this book for y'all, but I'm not sure I can because of how it's set up, how it's written. Even if you know major plot points, I got to think about it.
Okay.
But this is part 1 anyway, so we won't get into anything too spoilery.
Well, then let's take a break and then we'll come back and kind of see what that's about.
Okay, sounds good.
Kari, are you ready to take a spoiler-filled deep dive? Well, I guess we'll find out as we go along into The Heaven and Earth Grocery Store by James McBride.
Yeah, I am. Let's discuss this book.
Okay.
All right, you guys. Part 1, Hurricane.
Okay, go ahead.
So this part of the book you will forget by the middle of the book. What you think, Alexis?
For real, let me just say, I finished the section that we were supposed to read, and I was like, let me just look at some information about this book, and I was trying to, figure out my stuff. And it said the skeleton was found. I'm like, what skeleton? What did I miss?
What book they talking about?
Exactly.
So at the very beginning of the book, we meet a man named Malachi, and evidence points to Malachi being attached to a skeleton found at the bottom of a well by authorities. Malachi is the last Jew on Chicken Hill in Pottstown, Pennsylvania. Amongst the skeleton's bones are found a buckle, old threads, and a mezuzah. Don't you speak Hebrew? The officers ask him. Malachi responds, does it look like I speak Swahili? He says the Tucker family has been trying to buy him out of his home for 30 years. You're a suspect, the police say. Suspects schmuspect, Malachi responds. So the police leave. They're very confident that he has something to do with the bones, and they'll return with more evidence. But before they have time to return, the hurricane comes. The people in the town say white folks were jumping off their roofs like it was the Titanic.
I did chuckle when they said.
When the chaos dies down, the cops return, but the old man was already gone. He got his justice, and so did those whose secrets he took with him. Now we go back in time to the start, or when Chicken Hill was populated by Jews and Black Americans.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
We go back in time to Moshe's time. Now, Moshe created a business for the area's Jewish community, which included people from Romania, Hungary, and everywhere else. Actually, I think he's the only Jewish man from Romania. But there is a lot of Eastern European Jews in this part of Pennsylvania. Mm-hmm. Moshe created a music hall, a place for people to be people and to dance to their heart's content. It was really cool because there's a scene where imagine an immigrant who leaves their family because of war, civil unrest, comes to a new country and is able to see their people from all different countries, but their people, other Jewish people, just having fun living and looking to him. People were looking to Moshe to create this joy for them.
Yeah.
And he just remembers looking out on a sea of Jews, and he just felt so content to see his people happy. Mm-hmm. But he was quickly in debt with this dance hall. Looking for advice and a few Hebrew lessons, Moshe turned to the owner of the only Jewish grocery store in the area, the Heaven and Earth grocery store, owned by a rabbi. The rabbi's daughter worked in the basement. She had a bad foot and a beautiful face. Moshe fell in love with her and proposed eventually. She agreed. And her parents were just happy that someone was going to marry their disabled daughter. For real, she just got like
club foot.
Is it a cleft foot?
Club foot.
Club foot. Okay.
Effective polio.
Yeah. Oh, that's what it is. Okay. So Moshe's new wife is named Shona. Although her family was Bulgarian, Shona was born on Chicken Hill. So she knew everyone in the neighborhood and the community loved her. With her encouragement, Moshe opened up his Jewish dance theater to include Blacks of Chicken Hill, Black people. And it was a huge success. As Moshe noticed a band leader playing and all these people joyfully dancing about, he noticed that the band leader had scoliosis. I think that's how you call it. He had a curved spine.
Oh, okay.
But he was moving and people were responding to the music. And Moshe thought, cripples have brought me fortunes. First Moses, then Shona, my wife, and now this band leader. And these little quips, these little comments are all throughout the book from every character. Really reinforces how this is a character-driven book. You are supposed to really enjoy being with the people in this book. Anyway, so this mixing of races and feeling downtown with Black people, how do you think other people responded to that, Alexis?
Nobody likes when you mix and have fun with Blacks.
No. But for the most part, Moshe was able to pay off men in power to appease them. And they were never needed to keep, he never, even though he had to pay off these men and he was making money from the theater, the grocery store was never helping. So once Shona's parents died, they kept the grocery store, him and Shona. But it was losing money. It was a loser. He called the store a loser. They didn't need to keep it, but she wanted to keep it.
It was what she did. She always worked in a store, and that was her community. So she wanted to be there, and she wanted to have something to do.
Yeah, it was the heart of her home, Chicken Hill. So yeah, she wanted to keep it for the community. Shona was a strong-willed woman. She even wrote letters to the neighborhood paper saying that she knew exactly who the lead was in the last KKK march. She could tell by his limp. And Moshe warned her, that's dangerous because everyone know who he is. That's the doctor.
But she was...
Because everybody know his lip.
And she was going to tell it.
Yeah. Yeah, only Black people shopped at Heaven and Earth, and Moshe protested that a man with his money no longer needed to live above a grocery store with his wife. But Shona saw a different wealth in the community, and Moshe acquiesced to the woman he loved. So 12 years flew by in their marriage. She fell ill one day, okay? Moshe took her to doctors from all over, varying states. To see if they could help her. She began blacking out for no reason. She refused to visit that local doctor that marched with the Klan. Dr. Roberts is his name. She'd grown up with him and refused to ever step foot in his office. The Black community loved Shona, and they were all one people. You know, they all mixed. Their children mixed. They all grew up together. She lent so much to them that no one really knew who owed what.
Mm-hmm.
That's how close they were. Bernice, a local woman who was her childhood best friend, were one of the many community members that Shona had grown up with. And just a side note, Shona and Bernice don't even talk anymore, and we'll explain why. But Bernice has so many children by so many fathers that the people in the area started calling her home. Do you remember what?
No, I just read that too.
40 mules on an acre. He said Bernice had a face that men would write home about. But where was the men and where was their homes? Or send money for or something. But where was the men and where was the money?
Why do they do her like that?
Anyway. So all of these people from the community filled Shona's bedroom with life and ran the store for her when she got too weak. In broken Hebrew, Moshe would read Shona to sleep at night. After hours spent by Shona's bedside, Moshe left the house one day to get some air. And at his theater, he was visited by his cousin, Isaac. Isaac wanted Moshe to put Shona in a home, kind of like hospice. And his cousin Isaac was always this imposing man, strong-willed, loud, and Moshe was the quiet, meek one. But the anger in Moshe's face filled Isaac with fear, and Moshe said, "She'll live." He was furious that someone would even suggest that. Right. Shona, my Shona will live. Part 2, Dodo. Now we visit Addie. Addie works. She's kind of like Shona and Moshe's maid. But that arrangement is peculiar in that they're all kind of friends. But she's a Black American woman. And in her home, at her table, there's a routine like empowerment meeting held by men who need an excuse to play cards. So they supposed to be getting together to think of ways to uplift the Black community, but they gossiping and playing cards and having fun. The conversation switches between church to Jews to Shona. "You said nothing about Jews when your son was sick and Miss Shona made Doc Roberts see him," Addie tells one of the men. "Doc Roberts didn't come see my son because of Miss Shona. He came because of his amnesia. I gave him money and he forgot I was Black." So it's conversations like that. Soon, Addie's husband, Nate, arrives home. Can you describe Nate?
Nate is like he's a nice guy. He supports the theater that Moshe runs. When a upset performer came in, it was Moshe that was the one that, not Moshe, it was Nate was the one that was able to keep him calm and comfortable and make him willing to stay. So he's got a warm personality, and I think he really supports the community.
He has a warm personality. That's interesting to say, because this is a man whose voice and demeanor do not give kindness. You know these people, but they are kind, which is you almost appreciate it more. Yeah. So he's not someone to suffer fools. When he walks in the room, everybody shut up.
They respect him also.
They respect him. And he seemed a little dangerous. He seemed like them people, like, you know, they got somebody. So you really ain't trying to mess with him like that. So that's Nate. That's Addie's husband. So he walks in the room goes quiet. And soon with her husband home, Addie makes an announcement. Dodo is missing. Now, Dodo was the only thing Nate cared about besides Addie. Dodo is the son of Addie's sister. So that's Addie's nephew, and her husband, Nate, has really taken him into his heart. So he really loves Dodo. And to find out that Dodo is missing, he leaves immediately. Even though it's late, he grabs his coat and he runs to find Dodo. He soon finds him by a creek. Dodo can't hear. There was an accident with Addie's sister where the stove exploded and it ruined the boy's eyes and ears. His eyes came back, his ears never did. But he can read lips and he can speak. So Dodo lets Nate know that I got a letter. It says my mom is dead and that they want me to leave. And so the boy feels lost. And Nate tells him, first Nate balls up the paper because Nate can't read. So Nate balls up the paper, throws it in the creek. And I'm like, ooh, don't do that. But it don't matter. He throws it in the creek and he lets Dodo know, you have a world of people to care for you. You're not going nowhere. You know, I just want to read now.
Okay.
A section of the book. We're going to leave Nate and Dodo by the creek and we're going to go back to Moshe's home. He's at Shona's bedside and there's a stranger at his door. It says here, 2 days later, Moshe was fast asleep in a chair next to Shona's bed when knocking at the door downstairs awakened him. He watched through heavy eyelids as Addie, sleeping in a chair on the other side of the bed, woke up, staggered sleepily to the doorway, and clomped down the stairs to the darkened grocery store below. Moshe looked at his watch. It was 4:30 a.m. He gazed at his wife. She lay with her eyes closed. He leaned forward and checked her pulse, then placed his hand on her chest. She was, he noted with relief, breathing, still very much alive. Addie marched back upstairs and stood in the doorway looking irritated. There's a man down there wanting to see you. Tell him to go away. He won't. Who is it? He's the fellow who brought Mr. Fabricelli's bakery. He's a baker? I don't know what he is. What's he want? He said something about, she paused, giving away hollers. What? Something about helping Miss Shona in hollers. Hollers? I reckon it's Jewish words, Mr. Moshe. How do you know it's Jewish words? Addie frowned. I don't know what it is. I'm guessing. Why don't you ask him yourself? He came by yesterday and the day before that. He came here 3 times already. Send him away. Addie stood in the doorway, wavering. Then, with decided movement, stepped into the room, pulled her chair close to Shona's head, and sat hunched over, her forearms resting on her knees, and stared at the floor. She glanced at the sleeping Shona through misty eyes, coughed, then wiped her tearing eyes with the back of her hand. I ain't going back down there. This is they made. Moshe hesitated, confused. Between Addie and Shona, he felt like a ping pong ball. The 2 women had taken turns babying him over the years. He never had to cook, nor clean, nor do any of the chores that he had to do as a child back in the old country. But they conspired against him. Shona gave Addie a voice, let her run the store, make decisions, run the place while she read her socialism books and crazy women nonsense. Now look at this mess. His own help in his own house was telling him to answer his own door in the middle of the night. If Shona left this world, he'd be stuck with Addie, nagging him to death. Anyway, I thought that was cute.
It was.
So
it is a cute reading.
So Moshe goes downstairs to find a man. That man is Malachi. And Malachi is the man we found at the beginning of the book in the intro where the police were questioning him about the bones. Mm-hmm. I don't know why I told you that because that don't matter. But anyway.
It's not up for discussion at this point.
It's not. So there's this tussle at the door where Moshe is like, why are you so strong? He's trying to close the door on him. And Malachi like puts his foot in the door and then pushes it open. And Moshe falls back on his butt and looks up at the man. And what does this mean, do you think, Alexis?
Them pushing back and forth?
What I'm trying to say is Malachi entering Moshe's life. So once Moshe realizes who Malachi is, he remembers that when he first opened the dance hall, there was a man there who wouldn't dance with women, he said, because he was looking for a wife. He was a Hasidic Jew, and so he wouldn't touch, women. But he danced so beautifully. Mm-hmm. And he found a way to dance. He danced all night. And so looking at this man, Moshe was immediately brought back 12 years into the past, 12 years or more into the past, to that moment when he was seeing all of his Jewish brothers and sisters, his people, all in one place, just being joyful. And it filled him with joy. Malachi helps Moshe make bread then. And it's not challah bread. It's, what do you call that bread? Challah?
It's challah. It's called challah.
Yeah, challah. But she said holler.
Oh, she did.
So anyway, the house eats the bread, and Shona is soon made better. She feels better. She starts sitting up, talking, thinking, no more fevers, things like that. What do you think this means? Malachi entering Moshe's life and Shona getting better.
I do not know. know.
Okay, we'll leave that there for now, because there is a point where Malachi leaves Moshe's life and things change again. But Malachi could represent this tie to the old ways and to a specific type of community. So Malachi tells Moshe it wasn't the bread that made Shona well, but the fullness of the earth. There's a conversation now between Moshe and Malachi. Malachi is back in town, he says, because he bought that bakery, as Addie mentioned. He was terrible, though, at being a baker. He didn't know how to bake. He thought he'd just learn on the job. And Moshe's like, well, maybe you should have did the job first to see if he was good at it, because everyone hates your bread. And he's losing money. So they're in Moshe's theater, dance hall, having this conversation. Moshe suggests Malachi hire some Black workers so that he can focus less on the business and more on being a good baker. Okay. And then he looks out at Nate, who's cleaning up the dance hall with other Black men. And there's a boy with him. And there's something about the boy's eyes that just seems so kind. That boy is Dodo. So Moshe doesn't know that Nate has brought Dodo to the theater to work alongside him, because Dodo has been staying with Addie and Nate, okay, his aunt and uncle. So Malachi's like, who is that boy? He should be in school. And Moshe just notices, and he's like, I don't know. Nate bringing people in here all the time. I don't know. None of my business. And then Malachi's like, I don't think it's good to mix things like this. And Moshe is caught off guard, like, oh, you ignorant. This is Nate's my friend. That's my Nate. And he goes, your Nate, do you own him? He goes, no, what are you talking about? We're friends. So there is a difference there, right? Because Nate works for Moshe. Yeah. And Malachi's like, don't you pay him? He's like, what is he supposed to work for free? So it's an interesting conversation, and it ends with Malachi saying that he thinks Black Americans have the upper hand in this country because at least they know where they come from or who they are. Not where they come from, but who they are in this, their role in this society. Malachi asked Moshe to help him sell the bakery. I'm no good at this. I got my tools, but I don't know what to do with them. So you help me sell the bakery. And then Malachi walks out. He walks out the door, and Moshe won't see him again for 3 years. Later, Nate asks Moshe if Dodo can sleep in the theater. The government is after the boy. He can't just come home to his aunt and uncle. The government is saying that he needs to be put in a special school. That special school is really just a sanatorium, and it's like a prison kind of where they torture and do whatever they want to sick people.
Yeah, they mistreat them. I just don't understand why they needed to have him. And there's a conversation later in the book, but still within this part. And I just didn't understand that. Why do they want to have him there?
Maybe they want to do experiments on these people. They would do a lot of things, and probably still do, to people who can't defend themselves. And this boy is not mentally challenged. He is just deaf. He can even read lips and speak. Yeah.
And it's not like he's been deaf all his life.
And they're not teaching him sign language. He's not going to go there to learn how to better fend for himself in the world. They just want to lock him to a bed.
That's nasty.
Yeah. So anyway, the government's after him, and the government also don't like you telling them what they can do with their citizens. So the people, his people, Dodo's people, are hiding him, and the government doesn't like that. They want to put him in the facility. And Moshe's like, I have to ask my wife. So he goes home to Shona, and instead of saying, do you mind if the boy sleeps in the theater, he tells Shona, you'd be so proud of me, baby. You know, the Black people that work for me, our friends, Nate, Addie's husband, Addie, our maid, who always don't talk back and don't do nothing I say. Well, her husband came to me about her nephew, and I was generous enough to say, yes, the boy can sleep in the theater. Shona is disgusted. You got that little boy. What is he, 14?
Oh, is he that old? Okay. I thought he was
12.
9.
Let's say 12. Okay, let's say he's 9. Okay. You got that 9-year-old boy sleeping in the dark with the rats. And Moshe goes, well, the state's after him. I'm doing a good thing.
Sure said that.
And Shona goes, if you don't go back to the theater and bring that boy home.
Uh-huh.
So now Dodo is staying with Moshe and Shona. So meet Paper. Paper, also known as the local newspaper, is a woman who is beautiful in appearance, deep brown skin, shapely body. All the men's wants her.
Oh, yeah.
But she don't want a husband.
Mm-hmm.
And that makes her almost holier than the women that walk around being holier than thou. Mm-hmm. But she also a gossip. Paper can't really read, like a lot of people. So she brings them the local news in the form of gossip every week. And that's why they call her Paper. And they all gather around her to hear what's the up and what's the down. So everyone was gathered for the news, including Rusty, who teases Paper in a way that makes her like, he kind of interesting, even though I'm sick of men. Something about Rusty. You don't remember this part at all?
I remember. It's coming back to me. It's just little by little. I'm sorry.
Okay. So the topic of the town should be
this one
Dodo.
They got beat up.
Yes.
Fight occurred. Okay.
So the topic of the town should be Dodo living with Moshe and Shona. But that's not even what Paper talks about. And no one questions it because Paper always knows what the top news is. Mm-hmm. The top news... Soap done
knocked Fatty's gold tooth.
Soap done knocked out Fatty's gold tooth.
Okay.
Let us explain.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
So I just want to read a section from the book again. And I have this really cool Beyonce bookmark. I'll put a link to it. She probably it's an independent seller. She probably sold out, but I want y'all to know where I got it from. So anyway, this is Paper talking. Soap didn't want to give in, but Fatty kept knocking at him, saying, go ahead, Soap, I'm a man, go ahead. You could see the idea kind of hit Soap, she said, kind of growed on him. And with Fatty pushing him along, I reckon his mind told him it was okay. And here she chuckled. So he balled up his fist, and I mean that white boy reached back and sent that big fist of his rambling through 4 or 5 states before it said hello to Fatty. It started in Mississippi, gone up through the Carolinas, stopped for coffee in Virginia, picked up steam coming out of Maryland, and boom! He liked to part Fatty from this world. It landed on Fatty's face, something terrible. I can still hear the sound of it. Knocked Fatty clean off his feet and sent that gold tooth to his, the front one. Sent that tooth rambling. Then, Rusty asked, "What no then, Rusty?" Soap turned and went on home, and Fatty sat there on his poop hole. After he figured out his hair was still on his shoulders, he got up and started crawling, turned on his hands and knees like a dog pooping a bone. "And what you do the whole time?" Rusty asked. "What you think? I went out there." "You did not." "Sure enough, I came out my yard. Fatty, what's the matter?" He said, "My gold tooth's gone." It took us a good while searching round in the dirt, but we found it. That put a little dip in his stride. Putting that thing in his pocket, he walked off with a hole in his teeth the size of Milwaukee. So, there's a situation here that seems tangential, but if you understand that this book is about characters, then you get it. So, Big Soap is an Italian-American who formed a friendship quickly with Fatty. Fatty is a man with 20 jobs, a Black American man with 20 jobs. One of his jobs was to be cleaning some facility. And so he wasn't doing it well because he has 20 jobs. So some of them jobs, he just sleeping on them. So when the inspector came, he asked if, I think, a fire hose or something. What do you call those things that put out fires?
Hydrant.
Extinguisher, something like that. I don't know. If it had been cleaned. And Big Soap, the Italian-American, barely speaks English, so he just looked at Fatty and he said, mm-hmm. And then so Big Soap says, see, or whatever the Italians say for yes. That's what it says in the book. I know Italian. So, and the inspector grabs it and a peanut falls out of it. And the inspector says, I put that peanut in there 6 months ago. And Fatty goes, but it's a clean peanut, sir. And the inspector fires both of them on the spot. So out of the crowd listening to Paper and the story about Big Soap and Fatty, there's one man and he stands out. He's Black, but Paper decides the man works for the state. Something about him just seemed municipal. He's serving officer. Okay. So Miss Shona told the state 3 times that Dodo wasn't there. So why are they still sniffing around? Clearly someone on the hill is talking. Then we go to Shona. Shona looks over to Bernice's house full of 8 kids and no known father. Back in the day, Shona and Bernice's parents worked closely together. And when it came time to send the girls to school, they went to school together. They were really close friends. One day in class, a teacher was like, stand up and sing to show if you're a sparrow or a robin. And so Shona stood up and sang with her beautiful voice. And the teacher's like, very good. You're a robin. But Bernice refused to sing. Bernice was the only Black girl in class. And the teacher goes, you're a sparrow. Sit. And Shona stood up and said, Bernice isn't a sparrow. She has a beautiful voice. In fact, she knew Bernice's voice was the most beautiful one in the class. They were both sent to the principal's office. And then there was another situation with a dress that they were supposed to sew for class. They both used the same stitch. And actually, Bernice's dress was the most beautiful one out of all the ones the students had created. But the teacher tore it up in front of class and said that she used the wrong stitch. And Bernice thought Shona had taught her the wrong stitch to use, kind of setting her up for failure. Bernice did not recognize the teacher's racist hatred. And instead thought her own friend had betrayed her and never talked to her again and stopped going to school. So that was when Bernice really shut up inside of herself. And Shona's looking down at the house, at Bernice's house with 8 kids in the back. And she's like, I'm going to go visit my old friend. So she tells Dodo, come on, let's go, son. So, this Dodo, by the way, is like the embodiment of joy and life to Shona. She never had to tell him to do anything twice. He was smart, inquisitive, and kind. She had to force herself not to give him too much chocolate because she loved him so much, and he was such a good boy. At the end of the day, he'd hold up a marble, which was like payment for the chocolate she had in the store, and she would play this game with the kids in the neighborhood where they could pay her in marbles for chocolate. And so that was his way of playing. So she didn't mean to love him so much. She was only supposed to supply shelter, but she loved that boy. Shona took Dodo over to Bernice's house, to her old childhood friend, Bernice. Bernice opened the door and Shona's like, man from the state. So they haven't talked in over a decade. Okay. And Shona goes right away into the facts. So a man from the state is looking for Dodo and Bernice says, cut a hole in the fence. And when the man from the state comes, make sure Dodo comes into my yard. Because all these Black kids going to look the same to the state. He can play with my kids till the state man leaves. And so Shona turns to explain it to Dodo, who again can't hear but reads lips very well. And Bernice already closes the door. She wants to thank her friend for, potentially saving this kid's life. But there's no time for that. It's just time for what needs to be done. And the community will do that for you. Okay. So they have an arrangement now where they'll hide Dodo whenever the men from the state show up. Then we get a brief history of the Roberts family. Now, Doc Roberts is the neighborhood doctor. His family kind of built the Chicken Hill community. And he also has like a foot that the kids in school used to call a hoof. Norman, a Jewish immigrant, made shoes for Doc Roberts that made him feel normal. And every year his mother would take him, Doc Roberts' mom would take him to buy a pair of these shoes. But Norman, the Jewish immigrant, was arrogant in Doc Roberts' eyes because he would like move his foot around in a way that and wouldn't address the kid.
Never looked at him, never talked to him.
He was just like, come back next week, your shoe will be ready. Didn't this immigrant know who he was talking to? Doc Roberts would say when he was younger. When he grew up and Norman died, Doc Roberts would spend 3 times as much for shoes that weren't even made as well out of state to be shipped to him just so he wouldn't have to buy shoes from the children of Norman, the proud Jewish man. So back at school in his youth, Roberts would secretly follow a beautiful girl with dark hair who had her own shadow, a sleepy black girl who would follow her. That girl, of course, was Shona. So what if she was Jewish, he thought? She could convert.
She could convert. This whole conversation that he's having in his head about what she can do so that he can be happy to marry to her, to me, is just yuck.
Mm-hmm. So one afternoon, he builds up the nerve to invite her to join the debate team. She responds, chuckling, "Oh, no, I can't do that." And his embarrassment turns to anger. He reached down to pull her up to his level, and she denied him. She probably laughed about him with that Jewish shoemaker, Norman. So he's really nuts.
Yes, absolutely.
Look what's happening to our town, he thought. The town my family founded. It's overrun with blacks and immigrants, just like America, once clean, now polluted. Years later, when that girl, now a woman, walked into his office about her fainting spells, he prescribed medication and asked that she call him, but she never did. Again, he was insulted. When she walked into his office, his heart beat with 1,000 drums and all those old feelings came back. And then she had the nerve not to even look to his help for medical advice. Like, what?
Who does she?
Yeah, she's beautiful, but who is she to deny him again?
Who does she think she is?
Yes. And then she had the nerve to write the paper about his participation in the Klan rallies. Yeah. Those rallies weren't hurting anybody. Those parades were to celebrate America, the real America. So how dare she? So when the state offered to pay Doc Roberts to examine the black kid hiding in Chicken Hill, he jumped at the opportunity. Maybe, he thought, Shona's husband was a loser like my wife. Maybe there was a chance for us to be together. I'm going to try one more time.
Oh, my goodness.
He agreed to go find the boy. So one day, Dodo notices a flicker of light, a sign that someone is entering the store. He had no idea what a man from the state looked like, but everyone was warning him about men from the state. Stay out of sight when men from the state come around. The fear in Shona's eyes was unmistakable to Dodo. Dodo hid. A man with a black coat and fedora approached the counter. He was like, Doc Roberts was a fright and a joke to the black people of the neighborhood, and Dodo recognized him right away when his face came into the light. It was said that people would be like, why should I go to Doc Roberts and pay to die? Or if you weren't being good, your mom might say, if you don't go to sleep, I'm going to take you to see Doc Roberts. Yeah. And they go, oh, no, I'll go to bed. So this is like the boogeyman.
Yeah, they act right real quick.
And he's 4 feet away from Dodo, sending fear through Shona. She looked like she might soon be thrown into a seizure. And then soon she fell. His mother entered his mind. The mother, when the stove exploded, how she fell back and all the trauma that came with that. So Dodo leaped from the counter and he saw Doc Roberts crouching over the defenseless Shona, running his hands under her clothes. It was clear that Doc Roberts was preparing to do something even worse as he pulled up her dress. So Shona is unconscious now, going through a seizure, and Doc Roberts is preparing to assault her. It was a memory that would last longer with Dodo than he would have liked. Dodo knocked the doctor into the shelves before he could continue. Groceries flew everywhere. He began beating Doc as Shona fell into a second seizure, her body spazzing, and Dodo could then feel the doctor strangling him. Dodo hit him and blood spurted from the doctor's lips. Okay. Abby, Dodo's aunt, runs into the room. Then police enter. Dodo runs. Okay.
Addie.
Then blackness came and silence. He was caught by the police. And that's where we'll end part 1.
Ooh, juicy.
Dodo is in the hands of the state. You ready to take a break?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. Alexis, what do you think about this first part of The Heaven and Earth Grocery Store by James McBride?
Well, so far I'm enjoying it. James McBride is such an excellent storyteller. You really have to pay attention to all the pieces because you're not sure when the matter is going to come up later. And I like how he builds his stories around, like you said, it's a character driven book around his character. So you have time to like love and care about the characters and, want the best for them or don't want the best for them. So I really like that. So I'm enjoying it thus far. How about you, Kari?
Yeah, same. I do feel like the plot is very secondary in this book. I'm enjoying the time spent with each character. Paper was my favorite, and her little flirtation with Rusty is really cute and definitely tangential to the story. It's not a main drive of anything happening in the book. And it feels like I'm watching a sitcom where you fall in love with each character and their own private issues and concerns become yours. So, I'm having a good time.
And as you say, next week we're reading, Kari?
The Heaven and Earth Grocery Store, Part 2.
Great. Thank you for listening to Lit Society. We look forward to meeting up with you next week, Thursday. Lit Society is brought to you by Alexis Honoria and Kari Herrera. Support the cause by leaving a 5-star review for our show on Apple Podcasts and Spotify, you guys. Comment and 5-star review, please. And tell us why you love us, because we love you too. If you've enjoyed what you just heard, tell a friend about Lit Society. Visit litsocietypod.com for show notes, this month's book list, and to sign up for our amazing email newsletter. And until next time, read something.
Read something.